Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I am KRX, and we are still hanging out with France in the year 1444. Continuing with this beginner tutorial, no DLC beginner tutorial for Europa Universalis 4. This is episode 3. We've done a lot of discussion and talk in episodes 1 and 2, and quite honestly, they've been slow episodes, they've been longer episodes, but we're going to have to keep talking about those subjects. If something didn't make sense, if something didn't quite stick, we're going to be reiterating a lot of these things because there's so many really important stuff that we've discussed. And this is stuff that we do have to go through these experiences of analyzing our situation economically, internally, politically, diplomatically. You're going to be doing that constantly. We're doing that in 1444. We'll be doing that in 1450 and in 1455 and 1460. You're constantly reassessing your position in the world. That is how you play this game, because there's hundreds of nations and they're all going to be evolving and changing as we play. And the world is going to be taking shape. So what we wanted to do today was, we have 14 ducats left. We've been spending a lot of our ducats in order to hire advisors, and we talked a bit about why we'd want to do that and so on and so forth. And the game actually told us to do that. There was a banner telling us to do that. This banner right here is a big, massive amount of text here. It says disputed successions. Essentially what this is telling us is that there are nations without an heir. Hungary, I guess, has a disputed, no legal heir. So technically they have a regency. There's an opportunity that we could try to slither our blood into this. We could try to get one of our own bloodline, our own dynasty onto their throne, and sort of that could be a way to diplomatically expand our country via peaceful means, or somewhat peaceful means, by having personal unions over these other countries. So you can kind of go fishing for personal unions by paying attention to the disputed successions. You can try to interject yourself into some of these countries. Like Milan is an interesting one, actually. I think there's some historical connection between France and Italy and stuff as well. But for the most part, guys, we're going to actually say, you know what? Nah. We're not going to worry about that. That is a little bit more of an advanced concept, and it's not privy to the tension that we are doing against England right now. Okay, so we're kind of curious about, we've looked at a lot of our situation, just kind of looked around. Let's open up this tab. We've covered a lot of these different tabs. However, as we're looking to set goals for ourselves and plan out, we know already we want to attack England. We know this is something we want to do. War against England must happen. Okay? But there's actually something in the game that will help guide us and start thinking about other things that we could ponder and consider. It's the mission tab. So let's look at our missions. Let's look at the French missions. Okay. So the French missions, we can see there's actually kind of a good amount of them here. And a lot of them for France is a major country, and they're specific for France. If you have one of the DLCs, you'll have a different mission tree here. It'll be even more fleshed out. But this is relatively kind of an interesting mission tree that does have us sort of going along, and it looks like it wants us to reconquer Normandy. Okay, so as we can see here, all the provinces in the Normandy area owned by France. Well, if we hover over this, it highlights the Normandy area. But let's say we didn't know where Normandy was. We can actually hit F and search for Normandy. Normandy. Oh, there's Normandy. And it'll take us to Normandy. It's like, oh, okay, this is part of Normandy. Oh, this is the Normandy state, right? We've been clicking on this, and we see the province. This is the province of Caen, I guess, or Cox. I don't know how you say this. I think the X would be silent, right? But it's in the Normandy state. So if we click on that, it'll highlight all of Normandy. This is the Normandy region, or the Normandy state. Okay, and there's really nothing here that we care about to look at. It's just something just a little bit of an interesting thing, right? Like Paris is in the Ile-de-France, in the Ile-de-France section. In fact, we don't even actually own one of our pieces of the Ile-de-France thing, which is interesting, but it's owned by our subject. Okay, so going back to the missions here, this wants us to reconquer Normandy. We already wanted to do that. We already know that we have to get back all this land from England. We know that. We know that. But that'll actually give us some rewards. It'll give us free permanent claims. Holy cow. It'll give us claims on Brittany. Here's the thing. If we had tried to attack Brittany, let's just go in and just attack Brittany. Like, declare war, right? We click on them, diplomacy, declare war. Now, we know we can't declare war. We talked about this before. You can't declare war in the first month. So the game has to process for a month before anyone's allowed to declare war with anyone. That's just how the game's set up. So there's a cooldown on declaring war at the beginning of the game. But we have no casus belli. We have no cause for war. We have no reason to go to war with them. We'll get aggressive expansion. Everybody will think of us as a warmonger. Like our relationship with Europe will degrade significantly. This aggressive expansion is literally just gets dumped on all of these other countries, and it's an ill will against us. So it'll make we will be much more isolated and alone in the world if we're constantly going to war with countries that have that we don't have a reason to go to war with. We have no reason to attack Brittany. We have no reason to attack Brittany, and also we would lose stability. Our own people would be like, what the heck? Why are we attacking Brittany? We need a justification to attack Brittany for our diplomatic livelihood. That's the aggressive expansion hit that we want to avoid. If we had a reason to attack Brittany, we would not incur any aggressive expansion because we'd be citing our reason for war, right? If we attack England, we have reasons for war coming out the wazoo, right? We got reconquest wars. We could attack England over any of these disputed lands. No aggressive expansion penalty and no stability penalty within our country because our people, the French people, want to take back this land. We don't have to convince our own people. We don't have to convince other people diplomatically, other nations. But Brittany, it's quite the opposite. Diplomatically, we have no justification for it, so other nations will be upset. Our own people will be upset, and they'll feel a war exhaustion. They'll already feel like they don't want to be in the war at the start of the war. There'll be instability within our country because we wouldn't properly prepare our people for the war, and so on and so forth. So we're going to get all kinds of negative modifiers for attacking Brittany. However, like I said, we'll get claims. We'll actually have claims on their land, and a claim to their land is a diplomatic sort of document or something that tells everyone, hey, this is our land, right? So getting claims on Brittany will then give us justified reasons to go to war. Now we can fabricate those claims as well, and you do that with the diplomats, with the spies, by building up spy networks. So that is one option as well. We don't have to do this mission, but it makes sense that, hey, free permanent claims on the Brittany area sounds fantastic. And then it wants us to subjugate Brittany and so on and so forth. So that's one thing we're working on. That just says attacking land, take back this area. Cool. Sounds good. Build up to a force limit. We don't even know what a force limit is, but it's saying it wants us to build up our army to its maximum capacity. Although, to be fair, you can actually build beyond force limit. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. There's not really any hard and fast rules in this game. You can always break the rules. In this game, there's just always a penalty or a cost for going beyond the force limit, quote limit. Like it's not a true limit, but the troops cost more if you go beyond it. We haven't looked at that. We haven't talked about production, but we're just thinking about production. We're literally just saying, hey, should we build more troops? We have a mission to build more troops. How perfect is that? And we'll get some rewards for that. When we build more troops, we'll get more morale of armies, and we'll have a cheaper land maintenance modifier. So it actually makes the armies cheaper, and we'll have more morale of armies. So the newly fresh trained recruits will have a high morale, ready to fight against England. That'll be fantastic, right? For pushing against England. French naval power, have more or equal to 50. They want us to have 50 heavy ships. Now I'll tell you, someone that's played the game, that's going to be a tall order to get 50 heavy ships. So this is going to be a long-term goal. But we can at least look and check that out. We can investigate what does it cost to make a heavy ship to see if to kind of get a sense of whether or not that would even be doable to even start working on at all or not. Have a high income. Have an income of at least 28 ducats. Right now it's only 18 ducats, so that's just going to go up in time. No big deal. Nothing we can do about that. And then here it says reconquer Gascony. So it wants us to conquer these provinces down here. Oh, it includes Maine. It's actually including Maine in that. So we need these 3 provinces in order to finish this. And if we do this, we get free permanent claims on the Provence area and on the Loire Valley. Loire Valley. Where is the Loire Valley? Oh, we just get free permanent claims on this area and on the Provence area. This is Provence. This is the Loire Valley. So we'll get free claims on somebody that's our ally right now, right? Provence is our ally. We didn't cancel that, did we? No, we didn't cancel that. We could cancel it. We could cancel it because eventually it looks like we're going to have justification to war against Provence. We're not going to want to be allied to Provence forever. We're going to want to unify France. So basically, to be fair, these missions don't change our opinions. We already, guys, think about that. How cool is that? Thematically, just getting into the mindset of France and role-playing as France, we have already deduced the actual missions that the game wants us to do. Just because it all ties in thematically. It all makes sense thematically. So we already knew we wanted all this land from England because we discovered the diplomatic node. It says this is rightfully ours. We know conceptually from our history lessons that France and England don't like each other. And then this is clearly, if we know our modern day geography, we know this is rightfully France. So England's just here on a vacation. We need to boot them out of here. If we're going to, build up modern France as a minimum, as a bare minimum, before eventually sort of going off even a more ahistorical route, maybe conquering all of Europe or conquering the world. Who knows? You can do whatever you want in this game. So there we go. We have those missions. But one of them is build up production. We talked about that a little bit. So let's go over to the production interface, which is below the crest here. The production interface. Oh, this is going to be a little bit tricky. So looking at this weekend, it's 10 ducats to build 1 infantry. We only have 14 ducats. 10 ducats to build them, and it's going to cost us 0.2 per month. So how much money do we have available as excess? 2.78. So if we divide that by 2.2, let's just round down to 2 and cut it off. Basically, we can get about 5, 10, 12, 12. We get about 12. We get about 12 of these guys, and we could still afford them without sort of running at a deficit. Which is good because we only need 10 to get up to force limit. So to finish that mission, we need 10. The problem is to get 10 of these guys would cost us 100 gold total. I'm going to build one because we can afford one. And we'll get more money over time. I'm going to build one just to kind of demonstrate how this works. Well, I don't know. Do we want ships instead? If we want, so it defaults, the production menu defaults to infantry. And basically we would just, all we would do is we can't even afford a cavalry. We can afford the infantry. We can click a province. And you can see that this actually costs 10 ducats, but it also costs something that's not even telling us about. It costs 1,000 manpower. To build a regiment of 1,000 troops, it costs 1,000 manpower. We can see the manpower value just went down by 1,000. So we have 11,000 manpower. So we actually have the manpower to build up the troop count. We have the allowance, the monthly budget to do it. We don't have the physical treasury money to pay for them initially. So we're going to have to work on that. We're going to have to build up money in order to do that. So we don't have to rush to do this right now. But we could, like I said, we could build one regiment and just have one more regiment and get up to 28,000 force limit. Okay. Let's look at the ships though. Let's look at the Navy units. Okay, we can see here we have 335 sailors, and that's going to be going up per month. It looks like we have the heavy ships here. We needed 20 of these. Right now we only have 2. It tells us a summary down here that we have 2 heavies, 4 lights, and 8 transports. The lights are really good for actually protecting trade. We actually can use the lights to actually boost our income a little bit during times of peace. And we can sort of demonstrate how that works a little bit. We have a naval force limit of only 60. We don't even have the naval force limit for 20 heavies, nor are we going to be able to afford these things because these things cost 0.5 ducats per month. These things are very expensive to maintain. They're very expensive to build. It costs 50 ducats to build one of these things. We can't afford any of this stuff. We can't even afford a light ship. We can afford galleys. Galleys are not something that we're going to want to prioritize. They're really good for fighting in the Mediterranean, but they're really bad for fighting in the Atlantic and the Northern Sea. Cogs are, of course, transport units. We could build one. We are going to want, we're going to want more ships. We're going to want more ships to contest England, but we don't really need to contest England to win a war against them because it's going to be fought on Europe, on the mainland Europe. We'll have Castile helping us. This is going to be tricky. This is going to legitimately be kind of tricky. Because we're not going to be able to stick it to England proper. England's going to be sort of just hanging out on their island over there. Which, they'll be free to send their troops across because they'll control the Straits of Dover. But we won't have the Navy to contest them. Yeah, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but our Navy's just going to be inadequate. And how do we know that? How do we actually know that besides just assuming that England's got a powerful Navy? There's something, it's time to look at this. When we're thinking about production and what we want to build and how we prepare for war, the ledger is an incredibly important tool. Down here below the map modes, all the different map modes. And by the way, if you're looking for a very nuanced map mode, that's what these tabs are. These tabs include all the different map modes, and you can hotkey these any way you like. But there's technology map modes, institution map modes, all kinds of stuff we haven't talked about yet. But these are, if you're curious, like I want to see the world in a different way, the map modes allow you to see the world in a different way, right? That's the whole point. In fact, actually, ooh, simple terrain map mode. This is kind of nice because it shows you where the defensive terrain is. When you're fighting wars, this can be a useful one to see where the swamps are, where the hills are, where the mountains are, the highlands, because these have different aspects in tactical combat. But again, we're always wanting to default back to political map mode. Below the map modes, though, below this little mini map that doesn't really do anything, is the ledger. The ledger is an incredibly important thing, and we can investigate other countries, their economies, their technologies, their leaders, their military capacities, their trade, all kinds of the relationships between countries. We can go in here and we can start to investigate nations that we know about, only nations that we know about, okay? Not nations that are unknown, because remember, there's a fog of war. We can't see all the nations in the world right now. We can only see these nations in sort of the Europe, North Africa, and slightly into the Middle East. I guess from our perspective, it's really just kind of the East. So let's go to armies. Boom. Right now it's organizing by largest, is it largest, oh no, it wasn't. Largest infantry count, I think it might have been doing something. Or maybe it was doing total, it's doing total. Holy cow, I'm seeing England near the top, that's not good. Let's go to force limit. Let's look at everybody's, what is the capacity for a nation in terms of what is the AI? We could go beyond our force limit, but the AI typically doesn't, right? The AI typically won't go beyond the force limit, but we can go beyond if we need to. So let's sort by force limit to get a sense of who's got the largest potential army. England and France, look at this neck and neck right here. We have 37,000 potential troops without penalty. England has 36,000 potential troops. I mean, this is like, you couldn't write this anymore. They actually have right now more troops than us. They have 28,000 total troops currently raised, and if we were to go to war with them, they would build more. They would take loans, build more, do whatever they have to build up to 36,000. That's typically what the AI tries to do at war, is build up to their total capacity of troops, even if it means running a deficit or whatever, or taking loans. With France here, we actually have a little bit less cavalry than them right now. We have 7,000 cavalry, which are very expensive units, but very powerful. And we have 20,000 infantry, with the potential to build up to 37,000, as we already noticed. Okay, so we're about even with England. On the ground, we're even with England. The benefit that we have is that this is going to be a little bit of a home field advantage. And remember, we have all of these little vassals. So that number does not include the 12,000, 17,000 that we have from subjects. So our true number, you have to remember, our true number is 17,000 plus the 27,000. We have an amazing land army. Spoiler alert, France is one of the most powerful countries in the world at the beginning of the game when it comes to land army. But what we're really concerned about is, what's the naval situation? Who's got the largest navy in the world potentially? It's England. England has the largest potential navy in the world at 36 force limit, naval force limit. They have 32 total ships. They have 6 heavies. These are the absolute most deadly bread and butter sort of combat ships in the game. Heavy ships are like the most expensive but the best in combat. Light ships are like a utility ship that are fast and good for protecting trade. They can help in combat, but they're not the best in combat. They're sort of a cost-effective ship. The heavies are just the best, point per point, or ship per ship. The galleys are good in the Mediterranean specifically, but not really in the open waters. And the transports are, or when I say Mediterranean, I mean any inland seas, right? So the Baltic, they're good in the Baltic. They're good in the Mediterranean. They would be good in the sort of the Gulf here. Can't remember what that Gulf is called. Gulf Suez or something. Maybe it's not. Anyways, so on and so forth. Let's go back to the ledger, sorry. And it remembers where we were, which is really nice. France, and we got to scroll down to find us. Holy cow, we're down here at 16. like there's many nations that are much stronger than this. However, I do see Castile. Castile's here at 21 potential, 18 ships. They got 3 heavies. We have 2 heavies. Altogether, we have almost enough heavies to contest England if Castile works with us. And if Castile was in the war with us, Castile would potentially help us out in that situation. So us plus Castile might be a sort of at least an ability to somewhat defend our waters off our coast, but we probably wouldn't be able to do an aggressive. It's very hard to coordinate an aggressive invasion with the AI. They have 10 transports, we have 8. It'd be very hard to actually coordinate with Castile to invade England, but at least we might be able to sort of do some skirmishes in our waters here. and potentially do okay there. But for the most part, I think England is not going to be contested at sea. We don't have the money. Eventually, we're going to want to work up to that, right? Eventually, France will become a great naval power as well. But we're talking about decades from now, right? We're not looking at the here and now. Here, we need to leverage our land power in order to attack and go after these provinces here, and just attack into England, sort of on the ground, and focus on fighting on the ground. What we could do with our Navy, though, is we didn't talk about, is we can actually select a mission for them. We can have them protect trade. I'm going to have them go, during war, go to a friendly port and hide. So I'm going to have them hide during war. That's what this little button does. But they could protect trade. Let's set them to protect trade. Now, there's no way they can protect trade in Champagne because it's landlocked. It's a landlocked trade region. But we can have them protect trade in Bordeaux. We can have them protect trade in Valencia, Seville, and Tunis. This is our trade range. So the limitation on how far these ships can travel. I want them to actually protect trade in Bordeaux, because Bordeaux, we actually have a merchant here that's pulling into Champagne. So they can actually improve the amount. This 18% will go up. Those ships will improve that 18%. They'll improve that 18%. That's good. These other ships, the heavies in our transports, I'm going to move them over here just to kind of be there, defend, like in a posture to potentially team up with the Castilian fleet and potentially cause some havoc for England. So I'm going to have them over here standing by for a conflict in the Atlantic. Okay, so we have the Navy moving around there a little bit. So production-wise, we just don't have the money. It's just too expensive. We do need to build 10,000 troops to get up to our naval army force limit for that mission. However, it's and what's after that, by the way? Expand France. That's something we will do eventually. So we're not really rushing to get this build to force limit done. We can take our time with this. We already are kind of in a good position to attack England, because here's the thing. England's army is in England. If we were to sneak attack England right now, we can see, we have visual on these provinces. We cannot see this province, we can't see this province, but it's reasonable to expect they might have a little bit of troops here, but most of their troops are going to be probably in London and spread throughout the sort of the southern England. Most of their troops are going to be over here. But what we could do is we could actually try to sort of quickly siege and attack these regions here before England has a chance to sort of prepare for that war, and sneak attack them and just sort of have like and basically defend from naval invasions. Because as you can imagine, if you can intercept a naval invasion of troops, it ends up being it's a very high defensive bonus in that battle if they're trying to land, but we have troops already intercepting them on land. Okay, so this is interesting. We might be kind of ready to unpause the game right now. We know that we're not really actually going to build much. We could, what the heck? We could build another troop. Let's build a troop. Let's spend a little bit of money, build up a troop. What we could do is we could actually take these 12,000. We could gesture to move them around. Do we think we're going to attack England? We have a reason to attack them. We could just attack them just right off the bat. This is a reconquest war. It's a good war. It's a good reason to go to war. They are allied to Portugal, however. They are allied to Portugal. So here's the thing. If we fought England, we would have to add the Portuguese strength. We would have the Portuguese coming up this way and trying to attack us this way. So let's go look up Portugal in the ledger. Oh, that they'd have. Oh yeah. See, Portugal has a pretty strong navy. 4 heavies. Oh man, they have the second most heavies in the world, I think. Yeah, Portugal has. That's 10 heavies. We would be completely and utterly dominated at sea if we were fighting Portugal and England at the same time. But militarily, where is Portugal here? And we could search for Portugal. $14,000 troops with 19,000 potential. That's quite large. That's quite large. Portugal combined with England. The problem is, for Portugal at least, is Portugal would be coming up here sort of discombobulated, and England would be trying to land navally up here. So we could kind of divide and conquer a little bit, but it would be a little bit tough. It would be kind of neat if we could maybe get Castile to join. If we get Provence to join, we could see in a month or two, we'll see why or why not they may or may not want to actually join us in that. But I think, honestly, guys, we're getting pretty close to unpausing the game. We've looked at our court. We've looked at, sort of talked a lot about diplomacy and some of the things we can do there, negative and positive. The government screen, nothing really to talk about here for now. We've looked at our economy. We've looked at our trade. We haven't talked about technologies. That'll come eventually. Ideas are kind of part of technology. So we looked at our missions. So we have a sense of what's going on there. There are different decisions and things, but these will pop up automatically when they become relevant. So there's nothing to worry about there. All of this stuff should pop up automatically. Nothing to talk about there. So a lot of this stuff we just don't need. There's nothing to talk about. We could look at our military. We could just look at how our military is organized. And we can see that we have 2 generals right now. We have 2 army generals, which are, again, similar to leaders of an army, of a nation, sorry. 0 to 6 is the highest that you can have in any of these different categories for fire, shock, maneuverability, and siege ability. So these are 0 to 6. And needless to say, in this case, leaders tend to be very weak. Leaders tend to be very weak early in the game until things get rolling. The French leaders are absolutely incredible. These are historical characters, and they are insanely powerful, far more powerful than anything the English have, anything the Portuguese. Actually, the Portuguese, I think, have a pretty good leader at the start, don't they? I can't remember exactly. Some of the nations have historical leaders at the beginning of the games, but in general, if we were to recruit a new general from our army, it would be it would be a much weaker general than these historical ones. And these guys will eventually die, unfortunately. 21 years old, though. Jean Bro is 21 years old, and this one's 33 years old. So they have a long life to live here. Oh, you know what we can do with our troops, since they're just lounging around? One thing we can do with our troops is we can actually prepare them for war by drilling them, which is an interesting idea. We can assign them the way that we drill our troops. Now that we've actually seen, and we can see here, I apologize, guys. I apologize. We cannot drill the troops. That is actually an expansion feature. I apologize. We're playing without the DLC. Duh. Actually, you know what the heck? If we can't drill our troops, let's not pay them as much. Let's not pay them as much. And just sort of build up some economy. War could break out between us and England, but again, England's got to get their troops, send them over to it takes time to deliver their troops. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. So let's not pay for the troops. Let's make some more money so that we can raise more troops with that monthly income, and so on and so forth. We have our subjects here. Right now, they're all loyal with us. We're going to be trying to get royal marriages with them so they stay extra loyal. 50% is the number that we're concerned about. If they get to 50%, they'll start getting their own ideas about independence. And they'll stop being loyal to us and stop following us into wars and stop paying us and so on and so forth. Right now, they're at like 22%, 20%, 25%. Not a big deal. Not a big deal at all. These guys are perfectly loyal, but we're going to continue to want to improve our relationships with these guys. Eventually, we can actually integrate these nations into our country. We can eventually integrate them and make them part of France diplomatically, annex vassal. But we have to wait 10 years to do this. There's a 10-year cooldown on integrating vassals. So that's something that we can start to do in a decade. Guys, I think we're ready to unpause here. Am I crazy? We're going to pay our troops a minimal amount. We're going to set these guys up. Man, yeah, let's move these guys up here so they can kind of come down this way. Portugal might end up kind of coming up this way if we do fight Portugal. So having those troops there to intercept them would be good. England does own Calais as well up here. What we could do is we could look and see if England has any fortifications. They have a fort in Lombard. And they have a fort in Caen. So these are going to be areas that will inhibit our movement, right? These will be stopping blocks for us until we siege these down. Most provinces, you can just get in there, pillage it, take it over, no problem, very quickly, within like a month or so. The forts can sometimes take years to siege, though. It takes a lot of time to siege. However, we do have an amazing siege general. 3 Siege is amazing. These generals, I can't stress enough how powerful these generals are at the beginning of the game compared to what other nations are going to be rocking early on. So we have some serious advantages in our ground combat as France, as historically appropriate. Guys, thanks everybody for hanging out. We've talked about a lot of concepts in terms of investigating, researching other nations, preparing for war, trying to understand if we have an advantage or not, how we're going to win, thinking about how we're going to win the war, and how we would lose the war, right? Naval, we're going to try to not even engage them in the oceans and stuff like that, and so on and so forth. So we're thinking about a lot of that, and I think in the next episode we're going to unpause the game and just sort of see what happens and see as things update, some of the decisions we've made, see those update, start dishing out our diplomats a little bit more to continue those bolstering diplomatic reputations and alliances that we have and relations that we have, I mean, so on and so forth. So thanks everybody for hanging out. This one was a slow episode, but some important concepts and really just getting that foundation built so that we can unpause the game in the next episode, let the time roll, see how that feels, and see what happens, because the game will just immediately start evolving as soon as we unpause the game. Thanks everybody for being here. If you guys have any questions, I read all and respond to all the questions in the comments. Comments really help as well, whether there's a question or not. So thanks everybody for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. There's a playlist link down below as well, so make sure that you catch the next episode and you get carried along with the series. Thank you everybody. I'll see you guys in the next one.